Ja, einen
A
wunderschönen
very
guten Abend,
good
meine sehr verehrten
evening,
Damen und
dear
Herren,
ladies and
hier im
gentlemen,
Saal und
here with us
natürlich
this
auch an
evening,
den
and
Bildschirmen im
also to
Livestream.
all of you joining us
Mike
via the
Josef,
live stream.
stellvertretend
Mike
für
Josef,
den
representative for the
Magistrate
Magistrate
der
of the City of
Frankfurt,
Frankfurt, welcome. Dr. Christoph Rosenbaum, Deputy Chairman of the City Council and Deputy for the City Assembly, Dr. Matthias Danne, Deputy Chairman of the Management Board of DekaBank, and now I have to say Peter Kaschuler-Schmal, Director of the German Architecture Museum, of course, also our finalists and the participants of the jury, all of you, a warm welcome to the Frankfurt Paulskirche.
My
name is Marion Kucheni, and I am delighted. Normally, I am at a radio studio in Hessischer Rundfunk. This evening I'm here, delighted about this, and I'm even more delighted to guide you through this evening. The International High Rise Award 2022 will be awarded for the 10th time this year, an anniversary that we would like to pay truly special tribute to, and needless to say, we are so excited to see which of the 5 finalists, which you saw at the beginning already, will be taking home the prize of this anniversary edition. But for now, let's start with some music. We are looking forward to hearing Jagdish Mistry. He's a musician who is both at home in both worlds. In the world of contemporary music, which he performs as a member of the Ensemble Modern, which he has accompanied the International High Rise Award for many years already, and also he is at home in the world of classical music, to which he devotes himself in the Isenburger Quartet. And from this world of classic, from the world of Baroque of the 18th century, we will now be hearing Fantasy No. 10 in D major by George Philipp Telemann. Jagdish Mystery.
The
International High-Rise Award has been organized and awarded every 2 years since 2004 in partnership with the City of Frankfurt, the German Architecture Museum and DekaBank. The competition is for buildings with a height of more than 100 meters that stand out, and this is important, for their forward-looking design, functionality, innovative construction technology, urban integration, sustainability, and of course, economic efficiency. This year, 34 projects from 13 countries were nominated for the International High-Rise Award. 5 of them have succeeded in making it to the final, and we will be presenting them to you in more detail in the course of this evening. And for this, I would like to invite to join me on the stage the head of the Department for Culture and Science of the City of Frankfurt, representing the head of Department for Culture and Science, who is sick today. Please welcome on the stage with me her representative.
Dann darf ich
Then the Deputy Chairman of the Board of DekaBank, Dr. Matthias Danne.
Ton ist weg.
Okay, now sound is back again. The moment you started talking, sound came back again. Thanks. And last but not least, the director of Deutsches Architekturmuseum, Peter Kachola-Schmal.
Herr Josef,
I'm going to say, I said this already. We've had this award since 2004, this year for the 10th time. International High-Rise Award, of course. Manhattan, of course, the skyline. What does this prize mean for the city of Frankfurt? I think merely the resonance today in the Paulskirche. I don't know when last I saw the Paulskirche so full. This demonstrates the significance of the International High-Rise Award. 2004 awarded the first time, and the prize has become more and more significant over the course of time, as has the cooperation between the German Architecture Museum, DekaBank, and the City of Frankfurt. And this, of course, is not a matter of course. When something lasts for such a long time, I would really like to say thank you to my partners, that not only did we believe in this back then, but we have held on to it for so long, and that every year we succeed at being able to present great results here in Frankfurt. Beyond this, with the International High-Rise Award, when awarded 2004, I think back then we had Commerzbank, the Atrium, that was the highlight back then. And if you consider what has happened ever since then, how the cluster in our downtown has developed. A few weeks ago, I was at the Tower 1 trade fair. We have a new cluster at the trade fair. When you look at the goods train station, the development there, And then you see how the city has been developing in its high-rises. The gaps have been closed. And for us, of course, it is really interesting, as someone who is providing this prize, to see how are we in competition with other high-rise cities. Which developments do we have? In 2016, I remember the West was awarded in New York, not so high, but very innovative in its form. And I remember back then, I spoke with the representative of Bianca Engels, and I think 120 affordable buildings were built back then in Manhattan. And they told me 30 or 40,000 New Yorkers applied to live there. Back then, it was incredible. And for us, it's also important to see what developments do we have today in this high-rise family. Things that would have been impossible to imagine 15 years ago, like a hybrid. And today, we have high-rise families that are distinguished. And then we also have to look what the international development is like and to see what interesting developments can we use here. Dr. Danner, why did Deka establish this prize together with the Architecture Museum? Well, if you want to have really reliable answers, you need to ask Frau Both. She was here back then. I would have to speculate a bit. I would have to think, I've only been looking at this for 16 years, but I would say I believe the involved parties believed back then that in this constellation it could be a very interesting thing. Back then it fit to DekaBank very well back then. Most of you probably know we are a part of the Sparkasse Finance Group, and there the promotion and support actually is part of what is the ground rules of this institute, and it is known that we really do a lot in culture, education, art, sport, and then architecture joined this. And probably back then my predecessor, who dealt with this topic back then, probably realized very quickly that we can combine the two very well. On the one hand, our task to promote and to foster and to accompany this that also fits with our business model. We are a relatively big real estate investor, not only in high-rises, but also, of course. And here we saw a possibility to combine these two models with one another. And I do believe that is what back then moved us. And I can tell you it is what is moving us today, and why we are working together with our two partners today, and why we are so committed to accompanying it. Now we are at the German Architecture Museum. Peter, you are always traveling a lot, on the road a lot, also to look at these high-rise buildings. Which developments in high-rise buildings in the past years have really impressed you? I would say I find it exciting time and again to look at other parts of the world to see what is happening there, which would also work with us. And then we notice when we nominate projects and we come further that they are discussed, and that these solutions possibly with the project developments and the builders then actually have the effect that they can learn something. Currently in Frankfurt, with Frankfurt 4, we see a true hybrid mix. 10 years ago, we saw this in Singapore, and it's beautiful to see that something is happening, that the high-rises, sometimes they say, this is not contemporary anymore, but I do not believe this is true. I find it incredibly contemporary to think about it, because they use less surface. We can bundle traffics, people can come with public transport, and therefore high-rise buildings use less space, generate less traffic, and therefore in many cities on Earth, in areas where it's really getting too dense, they're becoming really necessary. Maybe not as much with us, but I must say even the city of Munich is thinking about exceeding 60 meters, which is really much for them. But of course, for us, it's beautiful that we are the city with a high-rise, and that is why the high-rise award would only work with us. And I think our investors and our builders really feel addressed, because I must say, every time we also nominate one or two projects from Frankfurt. Of course, that is very important, and it has to be mentioned at this point. Back then, you addressed the criticism. What many people think of is they say, yeah, the 60, 70 high-rise builds, yeah, square, practical. But now there's a giant fascination going around this, and we will take a closer look at this with the final projects as well. There's an incredible fascination with high-rise buildings. They're incredibly fascinated by them. Why? We like to be down low, but of course we like tree houses. We like to sit up and look out. And of course, in high-rises we can combine these two. Of course, there is no one who doesn't build a high-rise tower and then someone wants to go to the top and look out. On top of every mountain, on top of every hill, we always want to get to the top and look out. And this is a natural phenomenon, which also makes high-rise buildings so fascinating. For instance, Goethe-Turm, you can put it in the forest, and we could say climb up and climb to the top and have a look out, and everyone does it. That is why this recipe works, and that is what makes high-rises so interesting. Just a moment ago, we spoke about the 60 meters in Munich, which might be exceeded one day. Now, Frankfurt is actually a high-rise city. It is one of the smaller major cities in Germany, but it is a high-rise city, as opposed to Berlin, Hamburg, Munich. Why? On one hand, I have to say something about the fascination with high-rises by Peter, what he spoke about us wanting to go high. This question I really find very interesting within the context of city planning, because we can't really answer it with one thing only. Why did Frankfurt become a high-rise city? It has to do with coincidences, with a vision, with basic premises we created a long, long time ago. On the one hand, we are a traffic hub with the airport, train, autobahn. We have a high density of banks. We are actually the smallest global city on Earth. Until the Second World War, the main sites of the cities were the historic district, but the foundations, I said earlier already, the A5, traffic hub, Ludwig Landmann, trade fair, airport, all of this together. And then after the Second World War, when Frankfurt was destroyed after the Second World War, we really decided to get the Bundestag here, parliamentary. Well, didn't work quite. We tried. But as a result, we said, and now I'm coming to the next part, coincidence. Bundestag went to Bonn and not Cologne, almost. Sorry, I was thinking of Cologne because of Konrad Adenauer. I am from Cologne. Sorry. But anyway, then the facts of this resulted, and I really want to address this. Hans Kampfmeier, planner from 68 to 72, he turned this into something positive. He created a vision for Frankfurt. He said, we want to become a city of banks and of service, and we want to go vertically with various important banks, Miguel Knoten, etc. And all of this was seen and reflected in the city planning, what this meant. It was visionary. But, of course, there were lots of political conflicts, social. There was a battle with houses in this regard. And where were we going to build the high-rises? Where were we allowed to do it? But the idea and the vision was there. And ultimately, this resulted in Frankfurt becoming a high-rise banking and service provision city. Deutsche Bank towers, trade fair, Raumklein in the 90s and in 2009, where we started clustering and determining. And last but not least, we are now in a situation where we have this high-rise cluster, or the skyline. Frankfurt is truly unique because we recognize the individual high-rises very well. And meanwhile, we have such a strong development. We really have to pay attention that this beautiful skyline remains beautiful. So we have to see What is the organization of the high-rises? How can we ensure that this unique image of the Frankfurt cluster can be developed in a sensible way in the future?
Herr Dr. Danne,
Dr. Danne, when I was busy preparing, I heard the word excellent and well-planned high-rise. Excellent high-rise. The first time I heard this. Tell me, what are your criteria when you talk about an excellent high-rise? As I have to say, I am paying more attention to the economic rather than the architectural view, so maybe my view is a little bit different, but I can imagine we come to the same result. What is particularly attractive for me when I look at a high-rise is the design, the quality. And with quality, I can imagine, everyone will nod, maybe quality is something different to what the architect directly would look at. But for me, quality means quality of the location, quality regarding equipment, quality regarding its flexibility. There, I like to use the German word wie drittverwendungsfähig. Also, how many people will in future be interested in living or working in this building? That is the crucial point for me, because at the end, we have to consider the economical impact of such a building. And within this context, I would say maybe it's not so different from the viewpoint of an engineer or an architect. Then we are there again with city planning. Most of you think automatically with a high rise in a major city, you think of business, office. Can a high rise not only be a place for living, but also a place for culture? Of course. And I mean, it's not been so long that it's been a place for living. I think the first residential high rises, we're now ignoring the 60s, we're talking 2009, 10, 11, 12. Before that, they were office high rise. Of course, it can be a place for culture, but not only since recently. Look at Galileo with the English theatre. Currently, there's also a public discussion. I want to let you know that the cultural use has to remain there. And there is a public contract that the cultural use within this high-rise has to be secured. And back then already, we looked to the future. Also with the Taunusturm, Miss Roth, with the dependence of the MK, we had the district tower, the Hellerbau, we had the dependence of the Museum for World Culture. And I think the alpha and omega, apart from facade and the architecture, also we have to look at the base area. The base area has to be inviting and so open that we know immediately we can go in. It is crazy to see what is going on in Taiwan. You have options there. You can do everything. You never have to leave the high-rise. I'm not sure if that's what we envision under good life. But of course, this mix is not only possible, but also necessary, because I imagine that it will be better to market if it is more versatile. Now, a key word, sustainability. From the beginning, sustainability has been an important criterion for the IHP. How has the significance changed over the past 18 years? This morning, I said something similar in the press conference. 16 years ago, when I took part for the first time, sustainability was already one of the first criteria. This morning, I was able to talk about the importance of sustainability. Back 16 years ago, I wanted to say, can't we take something else? It was interesting, but not at the forefront. But today, this is completely different. I do believe, at least in the Western society, we have realized that sustainability for this and for the following generations is not only an important, it is one of the important topics. And I also want to say we all know that there are differences between understanding and implementing and actually doing something. We're not as good as we want to be there yet. And I want to say that it has become much more focused in the center of attention. And when we look at the energy prices currently and what's going on, now we are picking up momentum. Thanks to or due to this, the current situation that we are experiencing, we are trying to get something sensible and useful out of this. And I think what is happening now, or what is being promoted now, will result in us changing things at a speed beyond red tape. Just talking, appeals, analyses, and prognoses of scientists. Nothing would have succeeded so well as the current situation we are experiencing. We see this with our own building. We have more than 70%, 560 buildings worldwide. 73% of them have been certified. Of course, not enough, but it just shows how important it has become to us. Practically, we don't have any building in our stock that is not certified. Why? And now I'm getting back to the first point. Because it has become economically important. We can also attain bigger results, better results with sustainable buildings because the expenses are dropped. As such, the rent, although it stays the same, but their extra costs are no longer higher. And because the side expenses are so important for the tenants. And today, we are noticing a little booster, of course, due to the situation, which is not very good, but it is acting as a turbo booster. So, summarizing, sustainability, financial feasibility, the usability of the real estate, also life quality and culture, and of course, the place savings, space savings are high-rises, the city real estate of the future. What does a high-rise do for a city? Clearly, because we are growing as much as we are currently 8 billion in Stuttgart, when we have there someone, a great thinker of sustainability. There was a time when we were 3 billion, that was 1930, and today the children under 18 are about 3 billion already. That means all the young people of today who will become grown up, they will require so much infrastructure for living, working, traffic, that the world needs since 2030. So the next 15 years, we will have our work cut out for us. We have engineers who can help us. We have a lot to do. No one has to worry that we have too little to do. All of this has to be built for the next generation. Where will this happen if we don't want to use so much surface? Of course, we will have to grow vertically. There are countries like Lagos, Nigeria, where they say in the next 20 or 30 years it will become the biggest city on earth with 100 million inhabitants. And how will this be possible without high-rises? High-rises are the system we need to organize densely populated cities. So we are the pioneers in many things, so the solutions we discuss here will be the possible solutions that can be employed and deployed in other countries. And we are happy when we can talk about this and be an example there. Therefore, I would say it is highly, highly contemporary. So working, living, attractive, well-conceived, and surprising, and especially also so that people like to be there, to spend time there in such a family of houses, and to make this a place that is integrated in the versatility and diversity of the urban area. This is what it should be, the high-rise that epitomizes the standards of the high-rises of the future. Which of our 5 finalists have, in the eyes of the jury, succeeded at implementing this to the greatest extent? We will find out very soon. And for now, I would like to introduce you to the finalists. Peter, I think you're going to do this with me. How hard or how easy was it for you this time round to make the choice? As always, hard. Of course, we have to spread widely. There's a great variety. They respond to various aspects, and then the jury has to decide which are the most interesting, the most exciting, and then we had a major discussion, what is the most important signal that the jury wanted to present. The jury knows what I'm talking about. We really had some hot discussions, which were selected, what were really the cool points, crucial points. Finalist number 1. In Vancouver, in Canada, a building that is standing next to an Autobahn bridge, and then it goes into the inner city of Vancouver. There we have a property that couldn't be built, and the architects, big from Copenhagen and New York, succeeded in this unbuildable area, parking space, with all kinds of societal relevant uses. It could be combined, and it actually also developed the regulatory conditions for this high-rise. We can see that this house has a very special form. The ground plan is a triangle, and the building appears narrower at the bottom than at the top. What does this mean for the statics? Is this a special challenge? Indeed, a truly special challenge. We had the model in the exhibition a few years ago, and it kept on falling over because of this very problem. And this model did not have such a good static, although we tend to rebuild this thing. But I must say the statics here was truly impressive to ensure that it is anchored and doesn't fall over. But for the development of the ground plan of apartments, of course, yes, it becomes a square at the top. Now we're coming to finalist number 2. Quay Quarter Tower in Sydney. It's at the harbour of Sydney, but in the second row, behind, let's say, a traditional high-rise, which is also protected by 3XN architects from Copenhagen, and it has a very special connection with this building. Why 5 boxes on top of each other and have all kinds of life in the base area? We will talk about this soon. So the Quay Quarter Tower, this is not a new high-rise. Rather, it is one that was there and has been changed, truly in a fascinating way. This is a really good example of sustainability. Is this also a model for Frankfurt? Changing, rebuilding instead of new building? I do believe it's not only a model for Frankfurt, but a model for every major city, because in particular for major cities that do have older stock, especially older stock of high-rises, my personal opinion is this is the most sustainable way to build, and not to build totally new climate-neutral buildings, but rather, in my opinion, the future highest discipline will be to use existing structures to release as little possible CO2 carbon footprint from existing substance, and then to attempt to renew these buildings, to expand them, and basically to double them in the surface, and to move in a sustainable direction. This would be an example for all major cities, also for Frankfurt. Please feel free here to applaud. As such, we are now with finalist number 3. This brings us to our third year. We have a building in Wien, Donaukanal. As we know, there are not many high-rises. And here we can see 3 high-rises from the architects, Schreieck architects. Here we have in part high-rise, students in the base area. We have very revitalizing use, kindergarten. This is important not only for the inhabitants, but also for the neighbors, to make these buildings relevant for the whole environment. Mr. Josef, this is truly a very interesting design, little bit shifted facades that are facing each other, lots of infrastructure, kindergarten, restaurants. It is important. We have heard that we have something like this to increase the acceptance, that we can have urban life happen there. How can we promote something like this as a city? I find this family is a really good, this high-rise family is a really, just looking at the architecture here, at the curves, etc. In Rotterdam, there's something similar. Here, not in the cluster, of course, but here, what I find what epitomizes this is the mixture of usage, how we can change the ground plan and the base area, how we are using this, the various mixtures, various uses. And at the end of the day, it's a complete package of facade, of curvature, revitalization. Of course, how can we revitalize the area with hybrid building, wood, etc.? Because, of course, this wouldn't even work anymore without the sustainability aspects being considered. How can we promote this? With special contracts, with competitions. These are the requirements of the City of Frankfurt. Then we start a competition, then we get the results, and then we can follow step by step, and we can steer and create framework conditions. And this is really important and result in great results, as we can say here. Now we are moving on to finalist number 4. A house in Manhattan, New York, at the beautiful Bryant Park by David Chipperfield, architects from London, not Berlin. And it's just over 100 meters, so it could still play along. And there we have a hotel and apartments, restaurant that belongs to the hotel. It is truly fascinating that something like this is happening in a row of other buildings that are older, and it really had to fit into this and become a really good new neighbor. So I was told that you know New York very well, and not only New York, but also this corner there. What do you think of a high-rise at this very location at Bryant Park? Yeah, you can see there are much higher buildings next door, so one doesn't pay so much attention to it. But if you look at the picture a moment ago, 2 houses further, there's a dark building with a gold dome, a little bit Gothic. And that's a hotel where I really enjoy staying, Bryant Park Hotel. A little bit old, but I love going there. I can visit my son there from time to time. And what was said a moment ago, they really succeeded at putting something in an ensemble there that was already harmonizing very well. I mean, the Bryant Park Hotel has been around for 90 years, and this building is brand new. And so with this building, I would like to emphasize how elegant yet subtle we have succeeded at filling a gap at this space. And I would say the location, of course, I know it very well. I can only recommend it. Bryant Park, the traffic is okay. Feb, I would recommend going there in February. Absolutely worth a visit. Just a little travel trip for you. And now, Peter, this brings us to our finalist number 5. A highly interesting building in Singapore, downtown, next to Chinatown. The Singapore State Courts, built publicly by Siri architects from London with Multiply and CPG from Singapore. It is a vertical court. The red we can see there are facade, also covered law courts, legal courts, with a terrace where everyone can recover, especially if they do not have to go to jail. And behind that, we see the public attorneys working. They may not come together there, or they are in a separate building with separate lifts. And there we have a number of connections, so bridges in the air. Every court, they can do what every court can do. They have to separate properly. And of course, that's better possible vertically than horizontally. And thus they succeeded to build a new building with very little surface, and it remains downtown. And when you take a closer look at this and look at the details, then these 2 towers do remind us a little bit about about commercial buildings, department stores of yesteryear. We see terraces with lots of greenery, but no external facade. How does something like this work? Of course, you don't want to look into the court and have people look into the court, obviously. And the red you see is terracotta coating and green on every terrace. As we learned, the terraces, they are so high that suicidal persons cannot jump down there. So what is really special here is that you can go to a court where you like to spend time. I want to say the most modern court on earth, but also the most beautiful. So I will say to Peter Kachula-Schmal, Matthias Dahner, Mike Joseph, thank you very much for introducing our finalists.
So, wir haben hier
now we do have yeah, that's me, the interpreter.
aber der wir mal gerne zuwinken
Yeah,
möchten
hello.
und uns sehr bedanken möchten, dass sie das Ganze für uns begleitet. Aber weil es jetzt ein bisschen internationaler wird,
if it will become more international now, it's going to English.
Of this evening. And now that we have presented our 5 finalists with their projects, we would like to let them have their say before the winner is announced, and will hold this statuette in his hand, her hand, a statuette that is a work by the internationally renowned artist Thomas Demand. And this will be the prize for the architect and his or her team. The prize money of 50,000 euros goes to a third party that both the developer and architect have agreed on. And with that, I now ask our 5 finalists to join me on stage. Kai-Uwe Bergmann, partner of Big New York. And then Kim Herford Nielsen, founder of 3XN. Martha Schreieck, founder of Henke Schreieck Architekten. Matthias Kunz, director at David Chipperfield Architects London and lead designer of the Bryant New York. And Christopher Lee, co-founder of Siri Architects. Unfortunately, he can't be with us tonight. He is tested positive for corona, and we wish him all the best and a speedy recovery. That is it. So, Kai-Uwe Bergmann, you created Vancouver House. We've seen that. We now see it here. And you created something really valuable, let's say, out of practically nothing. Is that really what you did, or how would you describe the building site before your intervention?
I think that all cities have the same issue where the best sites are generally built first, and then you sort of fill in the spaces, and what's left over are sort of what we call sort of missing teeth or residual spaces that can be under bridges, or they can be too small to develop. And I think that these are actually some of the most exciting spots in cities. And I go back to, I live in New York, and you have the Flatiron. And the Flatiron was actually a site that was too small to develop. And before the elevator. When the elevator was invented, then you could stack enough floors in a triangular pattern that suddenly the math worked and you could develop it. Now the Flatiron building in New York is probably one of the most recognized buildings in the entire city. So think about Frankfurt, of all of the sort of missing teeth, all of the kind of residual spaces that could actually create the flat irons of the future. And this is the fat iron of Vancouver.
It's the fat iron. That's why I wanted to ask you, what will be the name of Vancouver House? It's the fat iron. Okay, we'll keep that in mind. Kim Herford-Nielsen for Key Quarter Tower. How did you feel having to deal with an existing tower right behind a smaller and even iconic tower in the second row in that famous Sydney Harbour? What was the biggest challenge for you in this process?
I think this process was full of challenges, I must say.
Okay, what was the biggest?
So many. First of all, the small high-rise in front of it is the first high-rise in Sydney and in Australia. And it's a listed building, so we had to respect that. But actually, we built out from challenges. The more challenges, the more exciting the design becomes, as with the fat iron. So the fat iron would not look the way it was if it was a square side. And same with this one here. We had to twist the building so we get the best views out, as it was in the second row. And that actually created the form of the building. The form of the building was not created out from, we want to make a exciting form, an iconic form.
And why did you, and why did you choose the twisting?
Yeah, we did the twisting. For example, you can see it from this angle here. You can see that the building is in the bottom looking this way here, because we didn't want it to look into the building in front of it. So it was looking towards the old bridge, famous bridge in Sydney as well. Mm-hmm. And when you come higher up, we wanted the building to look towards the opera that's in front of the building. The very famous.
Yeah, we can't see this, but it's impressive sight, very impressive sight.
So that was why it was twisted. At the same time, there was an envelope saying that we were not allowed to cast a bigger shadow on the park behind it than the building that was before. And the building that was before was half the size of this one here. That is, again, why we twisted the building so it didn't cast a bigger shadow. So all these challenges here actually shaped the building in that way.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I agree, more than one big challenge.
Yeah.
Far more than one big challenge. Marta Schrajek for Triepel. Maybe we can see this now. Marta, living next to the river in a high-rise building. We've seen the river in a high-rise building. It's quite a daring idea for Vienna. What's so special about your project? What would you say?
It's a long story. The program was office buildings. When we were invited to the competition, the program was office buildings, 80% and 20% housing. And we decided to offer a flexible structure who can be both. And during the development, it changed, and now it's only housing. And our floor plans are really flexible, and you can use it as a hostel, as a hotel, a student hotel it is. And the same floor plans, we could implement a very small structure of rooms. Also then loft flats. So it's really for us, sustainability is flexibility and social responsibility, because the form is not only a sculpture. All the cutouts are common terraces for the people in the house. And this was really important for us, to give the people a lot of common space, that the anonymity in skyscrapers are a problem, and so we work against this.
And it worked. We have a kindergarten, we have shops, we have
but we did not only offer common space in the base building, we also did it in the vertical, in several floors, a bibliothèque, kitchens for parties, because we have a lot of small flats, because the flats are very expensive, and so they can make party in these kitchens with the big terraces, with a huge view to the city.
Okay, Matthias Kunz for the Bryant. What was the idea when building something right next to this beautiful park in Manhattan, Bryant Park? Was it like, let us build something that looks like it has always been there?
Well, I think designing a tower has always a certain challenge to design something that has a certain presence, physical presence in the city. And we can see most of the other finalists, they're singular buildings, they're solitaires. I think in this case, in a way that the tower had to do more things than just being a solitaire, which is the interesting challenge. You don't come across in that many cities, but New York is, with its density, clearly is a prime example. Well, maybe the home of the skyscraper, but also the example of where these skyscrapers have to work next to each other. Mm-hmm. and somehow pair up. And I think the interesting part here was really designing a building that has its own identity, yet also works as in this group of buildings and picks up aspects of historic buildings, combines them into, in a way, a new idea, an idea that obviously is modern, is contemporary, achieves qualities we are desiring now, rather than maybe 90, 100 years ago. Dr. Danne said before, the Bryant Park Hotel, that has been built about 95 years ago. And by the way, you were sleeping in one of our hotel rooms. We designed that building the interior is about 20 years ago. So it is probably dated a little bit. But yeah, it's designing a solitaire, but also a partner. I think there was a key challenge we were facing.
And it's not that high. We've not such a big high rise for New York. Is it not to throw shadows at Bryant Park?
Well, it's actually interesting. Before there was a discussion about the B-plan, the Bebauungsplan that's being shaped here by the city in Frankfurt. New York is actually an adapter of this idea of the Bebauungsplan. So in New York, there's a very strict zoning plan that was established in 1916 and is evolving over time. There's been new rezonings. That's why you can see now new high-rise being developed around Central Park Station and in other areas, because densities have increased. So there are very strict rules how high you can build or how much floor area you can build. Okay. So that's the case throughout the city. In this particular location, these are landmark buildings. They're listed buildings next to us, so the American Radiator Building, the hotel, there's the New York Public Studios and so on. They're all listed, so there's a much more prescribed outline you're allowed to build. So we were not allowed to build higher for reasons of zoning. It's typically to do with floor area.
So, Kai-Uwe Bergmann, Kim Herford-Nielsen, Martha Schreieck, Matthias Kunz, thank you so much for the insights. Please take your seats again. And with that, the moment has come. The announcement of the winner of the 10th International High Rise Award. And for this, I would like to ask Dr. Matthias Danne to join me once again. So, Mr. Danne, you have now the honor of announcing the winner.
Is that the right one?
I hope so, because I can't check, because I wasn't informed who is in that envelope. So I have no clue. So let's check. Yeah, okay, good. So, ladies and gentlemen, the winner is Key Quarter Tower in Sydney from 3xN and AMP. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we back the winners on the stage here, we will, like always, when we have that celebration, we'll see a film which was produced, like the ones before, by ZDF Aspekte, the Germans of us know what I'm talking about. A very respectful, one of the last very respectful things you can see in TV, has produced a very, very dedicated, sophisticated film, as always, where you can see many of the things we already told you about that building, and many answers or many questions you gave to Kim will be answered through that film. I've seen that one again, so it was a lie that I didn't know who the winner is. I've seen it before, I confess. So how do you say it? Mats up, or what is the right word to start that film?
Mats up, let's start the show.
It is a holy act, and it is taken very seriously here by both society and corporations alike. The ritual dance of members of the Australian Indigenous people, performed on the roof of Sydney's latest skyscraper, the Quay Quarter Tower, on the occasion of its completion.
That is the cleansing of the ancestors. It's also about safe passage, permission to be here, and so that everybody here has the blessing of the ancestors, and they will be protected until they leave this place.
Embedded between two world-famous landmarks, to the left the Harbour Bridge, to the right the Opera House, the Quay Quarter Tower slots into the city's skyline and nevertheless stands out. A total of 50 stories spiral their way up to a height of 206 meters. The building was commissioned by Australian investment company AMP Capital. Until responding to the project tender, Danish architecture practice 3XN had never designed a high-rise. So how great was the pressure on architect Fred Holt to create another landmark?
We never try to create a landmark. We create buildings that respond to the user, that actually creates a positive user environment. We really believe architecture shapes behavior. Then there's site constraints, other factors, setbacks, guidelines, a brief, cultural factors that come in that start shaping the building. And through those constraints, we create this informed design. So it's never about form for us. And occasionally, that building, that final product, is called iconic. But looking at this building from the outside, it has a unique form, but it didn't start off that way.
And the architects and developers had to achieve something else as well, to breathe real life into an entire quarter of town. After close of business, the quarter was as good as dead. It had been a nocturnal non-space for decades. Hardly a single tenant renting office space wanted to stick around. A prime urban address with existing historical buildings confined to the social and business margins.
It was our vision, as well as the city's, to completely transform and revitalise this part of the city. So early days, you know, with 3XN and our architects, there was a lot of focus on improving the porosity across the two city blocks and to create more streets and edges and corners to infuse the whole development with a very diverse mix of retail. So there's this dramatic tower, but there's also a 3-level podium, which is also being very carefully crafted.
One of the features of the podium, which is again where that activation starts from, it's sandstone, and the sandstone actually relates to the heritage buildings around the site. We've already seen a big difference just in the precinct. Restaurants have started to pop up around the tower, which didn't happen 20 years ago or even 8 years ago when I started coming back and forth. So the activation at the podium, market hall level, the surrounding precinct is vital for the success of a high-rise.
Worldwide, hundreds of now aged high-rises are threatened with demolition, something that releases CO2 in gigantic volumes. That said, the construction industry is already one of the largest carbon emitters. The ambitious plan by the architects was to retain the building core of the old 1970s high-rise and shorten the construction lead time.
It is the first project of its kind that I'm aware of in the world, and it is absolutely a model for the 21st century. What's so extraordinary about the QQT project is that it's much more than a traditional retrofit. It really is a completely new makeover of an existing building using the pieces that were able to be reused in a clever and sensitive way, and then building something that's completely up to date and absolutely stunning on the city skyline.
The old high-rise's load-bearing structure was retained and a new skyscraper built up around it. This saved $200 million in construction costs, while the rigorous building regulations compelled other unusual solutions.
We've doubled the square meters of the previous building that we've retained 2/3 of. The shaping of the blocks, the way they stack, the way they shift, as well as the crown, the top of the building, it's shaped to actually fit within the solar constraints. So even though we've doubled the size of the building, added 4 more floors, we couldn't create 1 square centimeter more of shadow on the botanical gardens and the domain.
The main benefit was the creative construction methodology, where we demolished the existing tower at the same time as bringing up the new tower, and that effectively saved over a year in construction time. And that has a huge impact on the commercial feasibility and made the project stack. And then, of course, the other reason is the incredible environmental benefit. You know, we now know, and we didn't know then, that as a consequence of doing this, we've been able to save over 12,000 tonnes of embedded carbon.
QQT also sets completely new standards on the inside too. Here, the concept of work is thought anew and translated into architectural form. Only a few months after completion, tenants had signed up for over 90% of the space, and one day 8,000 people will work here.
Key Quarter Tower has a series of atria that are cut out of the northern portion of the floor plate, and that creates a social spine. And we call it the social spine because it really is the backbone of the interior. It gives the building its purpose and that social dynamism that's crucial to creating a place that people want to be. You know, a happy employee is a productive employee. So from a client's point of view, they can actually start to quantify this idea of collaboration and well-being as being good business as well.
Over 500 flexible workspaces spread across 4,000 square meters, vistas, workstations, tranquil spaces, conference rooms, views outwards and from above. They are all part of QQT's futuristic spatial concept. The quiet zones and meeting points designed by Aboriginal artists bring to mind the culture of the First Nations.
I've had so much feedback around the spaces, whether it's the actual physical feeling of being in a space like this that takes you back. Even just sitting here, you don't realise what this environment or this space is doing to you. But it's actually calming you and allowing you to reflect and to just be dreamy.
A truly dreamlike working ambient is also delivered by well over 9,000 sensors, 168 cameras, 36 elevators, 18 of them double-deckers. QQT is also kept running by an ingenious waste management system, while heat inverters as high as a house ensure energy-efficient room temperatures, and over 800 bicycle racks foster sustainable mobility. An unusual and impressive high-rise at an iconic location. Will the Key Quarter Tower be a strong message?
I would hope it would say that use me, explore, this space belongs to you. And it would also show all of us when we get older, sometimes we get better as well.
It was an incredible engineering feat, and nothing had ever been done in terms of reuse and transformation on this scale of an existing office tower. So it truly was a pioneering journey. But the nice thing now is we can sit back and say, hey, we did this. You can do this. And you can do it on a very big scale, and you can do it successfully.
This is the beautiful thing about the spirit world and the ancestors of this place. It knows you. and it knows your spirit. It doesn't matter whether you come from another place in the world. It knows you. And it will give you what you need at that time if you're open to it.
Our heartfelt congratulations go to the Key Quarter Tower.
Quarter Tower. An award winner should be duly honored, and that is exactly what will happen now. The laudation will be given by a jury member who has long been concerned with sustainable and future-oriented planning and building. His company, Transsolar, has been developing sustainable energy concepts for over 20 years and advises architects and engineers worldwide on their implementation. Please join me in welcoming Matthias Schuler.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Having the honor to give the laudatio to Kim and to Fred is really an honor. We know each other from some collaborations. And I will give you, as you already have seen a lot of this tower, there is not so much in a certain way, especially for the tower, to say instead, let's go to the first slide, that in a certain way, that was one of my conclusions in the jury, at the end of the jury, that this is really, the Key Quarter Tower is by preserving, and we nearly, I told it to Fred, we nearly missed it on your poster, that there is a hidden existing tower behind the new one, that this is really an outstanding example how we have to deal with our built environment. And I think this is why we in the jury, after long discussions, said this is the expression of sustainability which we took as a key point in the evaluation of the towers. Next one. And what is interesting, next slide please, this is not done only by the architects, and that's why I listed the whole team, because I was missing in some of the publications the whole team. There's already like local architects, BVN, they did the master plan and organized the competition. And they were finally your local partner. There's a structural team, BGNA. They're our friends from Arup, from Sydney. They did MEP, facade and sustainability. So this is all has to be considered. But then coming down is where you see refurbished 55,000 square meters. Nearly half of the building is refurbished, and this is now keeping, and the numbers are a bit varying because in some publications it's 7,500 up to 12,000 tons of CO2, which are not relieved because if you would demolish the tower and rebuild it, on one side you have to carry it all to a landfill, and on the other side you have to invest new carbon now. And I think this is one of our major duties today, and we all probably see it in the news about COP27 now being in Egypt, where 40,000 people talk about the future of this planet and how we are handling this. Next one. I have only 3 minutes, so it will be a bit longer. Now, and this is in the timeline, and I think this is very interesting. This is I took from the news, you see ZDF, so I grabbed it from the news on Sunday evening. This is the development of CO2 in our atmosphere, 420 ppm, that's the parts per million, the content of CO2. And the problem of CO2 is that it's like it reduces the transparency of our atmosphere in respect of long-wave radiation. So we get the short-wave radiation in, but we put like a cover over it so the long-wave radiation cannot escape, and slowly our planet becomes like a greenhouse, gets warmer and warmer. I marked 2 lines in this kind of timeline. 1972, this is now 50 years ago, there was the first publication, The Limits of Growth, and we all missed it. We missed it, and we didn't do anything. And now our kids are reminding us that we missed this chance for 50 years. And it's getting more precious and more precious. And now we are already, the head of Potsdam Institute of climate consequences talked about we are on a line to go for 2.6 degree, not for 1.5. And then there's another line, it's 2014 when 3XN, being really ahead of their time, they won the competition before the Paris Agreement. This was 2015. Next one. So I think this is how we have to put it in. And this is the development of the carbon emission of our planet. And you see 2015 and we are still rising. It's still rising. In 2021, the newest numbers are already 38,000 megatons of carbon emissions. And we have to go to 7,000 megatons because this is what our planet can digest in carbon emissions by the system. And if we are 7 or 8 billion people, each of us can consume 1 ton of carbon per year. That's what the planet allows us. And the timeline to go there, to reach the 1.5 degree target, is 2028. So that's around 6 years to go. Next one. So, and this is just showing where we are kind of emitting. There are three kind of groups. This is energy, this is production, and there's the buildings. You see the buildings are included there, and industry, all the industrial products, and the other one is mobility. So that's the three major part where we have to focus on. Next one. It's very interesting, and you see that as a consequence of the decarbonization of our electricity, we all talk about that we have to change from coal to renewable, and this will bring down the carbon footprint of each kilowatt hour of electricity. But if we come down, the embedded carbon in the building construction gets more and more important. So this is the way that, this is the statistic for buildings between 2015 and 2050, new build, 90% of their emissions will be emitted by the erection of the building. And Peter, if I hear you saying that we have to build in the next 15 years, again, what we built for 3 billion people before, the planet will not take it. I think that's something we need to be aware of. Next one. So I think this is, and this is the ticker, you have it online. This is an online ticker which tells us we are able to make the 1.5 degree target. We are able to emit another 282 gigatons of carbon. This leaves us 6 years and 8 months until with the today emissions we are done. Next one. So, and this is showing now the switch from 1.5 degree to 2 degree. So for 2 degree, we may have March 2047, but then it's already the 2 degree target increasing of our climate. Next one. So that's the final, the 9. So I think I can only apply on each of us. We have to start now. Better yesterday, and I think this is where I'm very grateful for 3X, and they showed us it's really possible. It's possible to do. Thanks for your commitment.
Matthias Schuler, vielen Dank. And I would now like to invite again Dr. Matthias Danne, Maid Josef, Peter Kaczula-Schmal on stage, please. So, you line up here, please. So, big moment now, big moment, great applause. With a big applause, the winners of the International High Rise Award 2022, 3XN from Copenhagen for the Key Quarter Tower in Sydney, Australia. Kim, Herford Nielsen and Fred Holt, please join us on stage for the award ceremony. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Very good. Congratulations.
Congrats. Congrats, Fred.
Congrats.
And you take.
I can tell you this is a light workout in the evening.
So, gentlemen, will you please line up and then line up for a joint photo? Very important. So.
Well done. Well done. Yes, you will.
So, all photos taken? Yes? Yes?
Great job.
Okay. So, and with that, it's the winner's turn. Unfortunately, the developer AMP Capital cannot be here this evening, but he will address us in a short film in a moment. And now, Kim Herford Nielsen, founder of FreeXN, and Fred Holt, project architect from FreeXN Sydney. The stage is all yours.
Thank you. When I got a question before, what was the challenges? I didn't finish my talk. Of course, the big challenge was about transforming the existing building to the new building. I think today it is a huge obligation to build for us architects. As we say, it has become rocket science. There's so many things we have to take into consideration. It's not only just to get a nice form or to do some apartments or office spaces or whatever. We have to think about, the sustainable thing. And the sustainable thing is not only about energy and carbon. It's about, does it function? Does it function for people? Does it connect to the city? Does it give something back to the city? As I say, there's no reason to build if it doesn't improve the place afterwards. So don't build if it doesn't improve the place afterwards. It's a waste of money and time. And then I want to say, it is teamwork to build a building like this. It's not only Fred and I that designed this. We're a bigger team. On the competition, we were 5-8 people, I think. But 20, 30 people has been involved in it from just FreeXN side to finish this result here. And as said from Matthias Schuler, there was also BVN, Arab, and a lot of other consultants behind the building. But most of all, we need a good client to build. And we had a good client. We had BVN, no, we had AMP and Murray Middleton, who was in the film. He should have been here today, and he was a strong character behind the whole process. And we miss him a lot, because he was really the one that was forcing us to do what we ended up doing here at the end of the time, together with all the other people from AMP. You can only build a good building if you have a good client. Thank you.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the award ceremony. Oh, sorry. Film. And then.
Hello everyone from Quay Quarter Tower in beautiful Sydney, Australia. I hope you're having a wonderful evening celebrating 10 years of showcasing the best of global architecture. Congratulations to the sponsors for reaching this milestone event. On behalf of AMP Capital's real estate team, we are honoured to accept the International High Rise Award for 2022. Thank you to the City of Frankfurt, Deutsches Architekturmuseum and DekaBank for this prestigious award. We are delighted to have Quay Quarter Tower recognised globally and to be part of the exhibition at the museum over the next couple of months. I would also like to thank the sponsors for the generous prize, which we hope to utilise to provide an educational experience to First Nations architecture students incorporating principles of Danish design. I'd also like to acknowledge and congratulate the other finalists for the 2022 International High Rise Award. Each finalist was a world-class project worthy of the recognition, and we are very proud that Quay Quarter Tower was recognised as part of this group. As the developer, our vision for Quay Quarter Tower was to create a world-class workplace with exemplar sustainability credentials. The innovative adaptive reuse of the original building involved cutting-edge engineering and conserved significant embodied carbon, doubling the building size without increasing overshadowing of key public assets, and saved on both construction time and cost. We are proud to see that the upcycled Quay Quarter Tower is now a global benchmark, with people around the world looking at upcycling methodology to see how they can extend the life of their existing buildings in the same manner. In addition to the complex engineering feat and significant sustainability, we created a space that recognises the important First Nations and colonial heritage of the site, acknowledges its unique location adjacent to Sydney Harbour, and begins the transformation of Circular Quay into a thriving urban precinct. Receiving the International High Rise Award for Quay Quarter Tower is testament to the team's innovation and courage to develop this site into a place worthy of global recognition. To fulfil the project vision, we were privileged to work with the talented teams at 3XN in Denmark and Sydney. 3XN's approach towards creative collaboration, cutting-edge research, environmental sustainability, and design excellence helped set a great mood for the project. Congratulations to our friends at 3XN for achieving the International High Rise Award for 2022, and thank you for being wonderful partners on this project. Congratulations to the entire team of people who have had a hand in delivering this project over the last 10 years. This includes the integrated real estate team at AMP Capital, our architects, our structural engineers, our fund investors, and everyone else who has supported the vision of this project from beginning to end. With Quay Quarter Tower, AMP Capital is proud to have created a legacy of sustainable social, cultural, and economic value for our investors, the people of Sydney, and its visitors. Thank you again for the recognition and privilege of awarding Quay Quarter Tower with the International High Rise Award for 2022.
Okay. So, second try. I mean, each time someone leaves the stage, it's a reflex, it's a presenter's reflex just to join stage again, so I can't help it. But that, ladies and gentlemen, really was the award ceremony for the 10th International High Rise Award here in the Paulskirche in Frankfurt. We've seen not only happy winners, but 5 wonderful finalists with forward-looking, visionary high-rise projects. And we've learned that high-rise of the future is a place worth living in. It's sustainable, it's versatile, it's surprising, and it is beautiful, really beautiful to look at. I wish the architects and the planners, the builders, the courage to continue on this path, and may your creativity never run dry. And if you want to take a closer look at all these projects, not only of our finalists, but of all the nominees, you will have the opportunity to do so from tomorrow on. That's when the exhibition for the International High Rise Award 2022 opens at 7 p.m. at the Museum Angewandte Kunst, in which the projects are documented with models, with large format photos, with drawings, with texts, with films, the complete portfolio, and a visit is hereby warmly recommended. And we will end this evening as it began, with music performed by Jagdish Mistry on the violin, this time a piece of contemporary music by the British composer George Benjamin, Canon for Sally. Jagdish Mystery. So, it is not quite over yet, not quite, because finally I ask our winners to come on stage, and also the clients, the finalists, Peter Kaczula-Schmal, Mr. Danner, Mr. Josef, please come join me. Join me on stage for a final photo with all the clients, all the finalists, the winners. Please come join me on stage for a final photo. Yes. So, come forward, please. Smaller ones first, front line, taller ones in the back. Okay, like a class photo. So maybe we can come together a bit. Is that all right for you? Shall we just? Okay. Okay, thank you so much. So, thank you all here at the Paulskirche. Thank you so much for being with us in the live stream. Deka now invites you all to a small drink where you can continue to network and exchange ideas, maybe. We will see each other again in 2 years at the latest. And until then, please stay healthy and confident. Thank you very much. Good night.